Jeff Jacobson, welcome to the show, or I should say, welcome back.
Thanks for having me back again. I'm glad I got a repeat visitation.
Yeah, for people who don't have a history with the podcast, you were my very first guest, which was so kind of you. And then I brought you back for a really cool conversation at one point with Neil Quinn Edwards. And then here we are again talking about a project that, or actually, not really talking about the project so much as about why we both care about kindness so much.
Yeah. It's so
Yeah.
fun one of the things I love about talking about kindness with you is we continue to debunk myths. I know for myself,
Yes.
I was pretty sure what the myths were, and the more we talk over this year plus, the more myths get debunked.
Yes, very true. Yeah, and it's so fun because I think we both appreciate learning and learning through
Yeah.
conversation. That's probably why we're both facilitators and trainers, is because we like to help other people learn, and we learn every time we're in a classroom.
Yeah. I'd rather talk about kindness and then read rather than read about it and go, oh, yeah, I sort of learned something.
Right. Well, you and I go way back. In addition to being on the show, I've known you, I think, since 2000. I know this because it was the year I did my original coach training, and you were one of my
Yeah.
trainers. So even though I'm the older of the two of us, I just want to make sure people know that I'm the elder.
You are.
You were one of my first coaches because I liked you so much in the class that I wanted to work with you. And yeah, what else? What else? What other roles have we held for each other?
Colleagues at CTI, and
Yes.
also friends, especially when you and Andy moved to Seattle when I was living there. Well, wait, you were there first, then I moved. And so we got
Yeah.
to actually build more of a friendship where we get to see each other regularly.
Yeah, and also in
Then you
California.
came
I
down to
followed you down
California,
to
Southern
the
California.
LA area. I was in Orange County. We've had Friendsgivings
Yes.
together, which are super fun.
And then we both returned to the Northwest.
Exactly. That's. I'm so glad that you and Terry decided to move back up here. It's
Me
wonderful.
too. For everybody that's listening right now, Portland,
Hmm.
where I live, is getting a lot of rain. Seattle, where Nina lives, is getting a lot of rain.
Yeah, I think people know about
Yeah,
this. I do, but maybe by the time this airs, as we like to say, the rain will be gone and we'll have some
I
sunshine.
think that would be nice for everybody.
It would be very kind of Mother
It'd be
Nature to
very
do that.
kind of Mother Nature. As my mom sometimes likes to say, well, we need the rain. I'm like, well, do we? Right now, so much.
Hmm. Yeah,
I,
yeah.
maybe we have other connections, but I can't think of them. But it's right now when I think of it as my friendship with you, fun
Yes.
times with you, and then our kindness work.
Yes. I think we both are foodies. And so, or, well, your partner's a foodie. You and I both like to eat food. so, and sometimes I cook it too. I'm a little lazy about that sometimes. So, and I want people to know about you outside of our relationship. So, what do you want to tell people about your work in the world?
I I found myself in the coaching and leadership development world a little accidentally. I had initially thought I was going to be an interpreter. That's where I was
Hmm.
heading in the world. That seemed to be the most exciting thing. And basically, that was the focus between 1992 and 94. And then I found out about coaching, and that really, I think I just liked the approach and I liked the conversation, like you mentioned earlier, and that sort of unfolded into a career. So it's really having conversations with people about the stuff that they care about more. And sometimes I feel like I feel like a dental hygienist. Sometimes just getting in there and scraping away at the plaque and doing the time in the chair so that
Hmm.
our, in
Hmm.
this case, leadership hygiene can get clear. It is not the most
Nice.
glamorous of metaphors, but I don't think our
Yeah.
work is always that glamorous. I think it's like roll
Yeah.
up your sleeves and get in there. So I'm a get in there kind
Yeah.
of hygienist.
Yes, and I think you bring both depth and humor, which I think is such an amazing combination to coaching. Because I've seen you coach many times, I've experienced your coaching, and I think that also makes a huge difference for people to feel safe. And I think today we're going to be talking about coaching, but also just developing people, which is kind of the close cousin of coaching.
Yeah.
When we're doing pure coaching, it's really the client leading. And so if they want to grow, that's the conversation. But if they just want to talk about cleaning out their closet, that's the conversation we have, right?
Doing their marathon practice and training, we coach them on that.
Yeah. And we just try to take it a deeper to a deeper place about who they're becoming as they do
Yeah.
that. And then when I think about leadership development, sometimes we have even more of an agenda because maybe they've been given some feedback or they are being asked to scale up into a new role and they feel like they need more support and more tools for that. And so there's a little bit more, I don't think it's mentoring because you and I both are honest about how long we've been coaching versus leading
Yeah.
in the organizations, but there is some tools that we have that help with mindset and those kinds of things.
Sometimes I also think there can be a gap between what the culture wants for them in their organization and where they think they are or what they want. And sometimes
Hmm.
I think it's cultural translating, and
Yeah.
then how we can help them make sure that their values line up with what's wanted, and then they're unstoppable.
Love that. Love
Which
that.
is
Yeah.
kind.
Because
I think it's
it
kind.
is kind. Yeah. What makes it kind from you?
I mean, maybe busting up the myth a myth of kindness might be, well, I'm not going to try to push them to look at the gap
Mm,
between what they want and maybe what their org or the org's culture wants, but to get in there and dig and to see, to bust it out of this either or thing. Like, well, I have to just swallow it for the culture and throw my own values aside, or I'm only going to stick with my values and ignore what's happening here. And to help them
yeah.
find that and, which I think can be a lot of hard, brave work, is kind in that it's more real.
Yeah. I love that. I love that. And it reminds me too of how um, if we're complying versus choosing and finding, and again from our values, because sometimes I've asked my clients to choose, and I realize I'm imposing something on them.
Yes.
But if we actually point out, so what's important to you about growth, and then they find that alignment, like you said, versus their saboteur saying, well, I should do this because if I'm a good leader, I would do this, or if I'm a good employee, I would do this. And then we know that that is not kind to themselves because that saboteur is very heavy.
That's where I love that you said that about complying. That's where I think from the outside this can look like light, fluffy work, but this part of kindness is taking a bold stand for the people we're talking with, not their saboteurs. And like that takes muscle and on our part, but definitely on their part.
Yeah, yeah.
I was
So that is important for us to say, right? That true kindness is not about being nice and it's not about doing what other people tell you to do. It's actually something beyond that.
yeah.
You were about to say something too.
Well, I was thinking last night in terms of knowing we were going to talk about this, what do you, Nina, specifically bring to this work? And one of the things, I mean, I certainly knew it before, but I experienced it with you over and over again in this work, is just what happened. I have kind of an idea and I sort of say it out loud and I'm finding it, and then you succinctly
Oh,
name it as, in this case, as complying and saboteur. And I think
yeah.
that's part of your brilliance is distillation.
Thank
You're really
you.
good at that. And I just, I was going to be an interpreter, so a lot of it was about language and vocabulary. And every time you do that, I get so excited.
That's
It's
awesome.
true.
Well, it makes it easy to work with you because you are so open to my ideas or my connections, the connections I make. So look at Mutual
Yeah,
Appreciation
that's right.
Society.
That's right.
Well, what would you want people to know about why this project for you? Like, why have you been such an advocate for kindness?
It started, this version of it started during COVID when I was working with some leaders at an organization that were trying to have some cultural cohesion and actually basically have people line up shoulder to shoulder to be able to tackle what they were up to. And they were having some big culture gaps. And what these leaders were trying to do, there was two folks who were trying to be open-minded and open-hearted around some real cultural conflict and then get everybody on the same page to move forward, and they weren't getting anywhere. And they wanted to know what techniques, what books they could read, what things could they say. And the two of them were a little walled off. Two
Mm,
men, their I was going to say their hearts were in the right place, but their hearts were also walled off. And
mm,
it didn't matter what new technique or approach or philosophy they used, without them letting their hearts crack open to the pain that was going on in their organization. It was almost like they were trying to drive a vehicle remotely. And they have their remote control, they've got the screen, but the vehicle's across town, and the vehicle's bumping into things.
Wow.
And I remember thinking, well, to be honest with you, this may seem, I'm gay, they're not. And I was like, well, if they could just be a little bit more gay, and I don't mean in the sense of attracted to men, I mean, soften their hearts, be a little bit more vulnerable and not have all the answers before they approach their teams. And the few times that they did that, it really worked. It was scary for them because it was chaotic and vulnerable. But when their hearts were open, they had a lot more intelligence available to navigate this stuff. I think that's why I care about this.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm so glad that you do, because it really, that resonates for me, especially around all the male conditioning that I see in my immediate world, but even in with clients. And it's tough because I think men have been, at least Gen X men, I think it's shifting quite a bit. But
Agreed.
and again, maybe it is more straight men, but conditioned to be problem solvers. And of course, as leaders, they've got the double expectation of problem solving. And so when it's not about fixing something right away or just using your head to solve it, is what I was hearing. There was a lot of head
Yes.
and not, like you said, enough heart, that, to open yourself up, to be empathetic, to not be in control in a way, and just to hear people, which, I work with a lot of really talented leaders who do know how to do that, men who know how to do that. And
Yeah.
it can make such a huge difference in how the team feels.
I love that. Sorry, I just love so much of what you're saying. My brain was going in like 5 directions at once. People do know how to do it, or they know how to do it once some of that other stuff gets scraped away. It's not like, I don't think we necessarily, I don't know if this is true, what I'm about to say out loud. I don't know if we have to teach kindness as much as we have to help all of us unteach and unlearn the things that get in the way of it. Because it seems inherent, but covered up.
Yeah. And maybe that's why we have a harder time when we've been promoting this work. I think people, they don't dismiss it, but I don't know if it always catches people because it's not exciting. It doesn't sound exciting.
I have
It
to
sounds
be
like something I
kinder.
already know how to do that. Or just what the world needs. Like that means you're going to roll over, and it's actually the opposite. It means you're going to surface the difficult conversations because you have the skill to do it in a way that doesn't do more harm. Right.
We've talked about this before. So whether it's male conditioning or corporate conditioning or human or organizational conditioning, some folks are geared towards figure it all out ahead of time and don't be vulnerable. So you and I I know we'll get to the different pathways that we've created for this work. Vulnerability is one way in, or one way to be kinder. But some folks have really built that muscle. And what they haven't built as much necessarily is the fierce side, or the boundaried side, or the clarity side, or the intense side of kindness. And that needs to be cultivated. Or the things that get in the way need to be scraped away. That's also kind, to be direct, to be fierce, to set a boundary.
Yeah.
What are you thinking?
Oh, I'm just pausing for a minute because we're going really quick, and I'm appreciating the conversation, and I'm just wanting to give it its due. And and I do think that this might be a good time, and we can put a link to a PDF for people, but and we're not going to spend time so much on the model itself because we just want to have a fun conversation. But the 5 pathways, I think it's important for people to know what they are as we reference them. So clarity is one. That's one of my favorites and one that I think I do well.
Vulnerability is another one. And the way you and I play with that definition is being open to others impacting us. Yes. And the opposite would be invulnerable. I'm not open to being moved by other people.
Yeah, what Brene Brown calls being armored. Yeah. So I love her work in this way. So, and then there's also honesty, which I think it's appropriate for it to come after vulnerability, because honesty is the one that I think gets us into trouble in our culture of giving feedback for everything and feeling like it's our job. And then we get into people's business when we don't need to be. And it just can create, again, the opposite of people feeling engaged and like they know what's important, right? And that includes in your coaching. So if you're a coach and you're working with someone and you want to be honest, sometimes we just don't have enough practice doing it because we think our job is mostly to ask questions, and it is mostly to ask questions, but sometimes our clients need something to bump up against, or we hear something that we catch and we want to mention it. And so I think that's why honesty is so important to the model.
Right. And I know for me growing up, it was either if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say it, or if you're going to be honest, be brutal. And I don't like either
Yeah.
one of those extremes.
No, me neither. Yeah, they're very black and white in a way,
Yeah.
right? Yeah.
Playfulness,
And then,
another pathway.
yes, I was going to say, we have to talk about the fun ones.
Yeah. We saved the fun ones for last. Playfulness,
Yeah.
this idea of creative, being improvisational, fresh, and remember the fun or the game of life or the game of work, the game of conversations. In this case, the game of coaching. Not that it's a board game, but that things can be fun.
Yes.
Inherently.
Yeah. And I think of that one almost as like you mentioned the word lightness. My emphasis is on that because sometimes when you're being honest, if
Yeah.
you were to laugh in the middle of that, it might be misconstrued. But if you're holding it like, this is just some information, uh, this may not be useful to you, or even when they're in the middle of it, and if they're feeling kind of, maybe hurt that they've been criticized, not by us, but by someone else, it's just like, oh, just bringing a certain level of humanity to it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Imagine in your coaching being able to do that, just to continually, as they're talking about something that's hard or challenging,
Yeah.
to have that lightness and that inclusivity and humanity with it. There's playfulness. It's something you
Yeah.
do really well, consistently.
You too.
Oh, no, you. Oh, sorry. I was thinking of how you combine lightness with honesty. So I'm already kind of
Oh,
jumping off the
oh,
model,
cool.
looking at the combination. When you'll say, oh, can
Yes.
I talk to you about something that's a little bit hard or something that happened? You make a very light, kind invitation, but it stays honest.
Yeah. The place where I could be more playful is with myself.
Oh,
I was noticing I got some coaching over the weekend. I was a demonstration client in a class, and I was talking about myself, and I was getting a little embarrassed, which is something I do as an Enneagram 4,
okay.
get embarrassed easily. And I just noticed I kept laughing, but it wasn't my true laugh. It was my uncomfortable
Oh, yeah.
laugh. And at some point I was just like, and because I was in a demo, I was noticing it more than if I was just being coached, or having a normal conversation with someone. So I was like, that's going to be my homework, is not laughing when it's not a real laugh. Right. And
Oh,
so,
yeah.
and I think the key to that is like, I am being almost that embarrassment is me being really hard on myself instead of just looking at, oh yeah, I'm human.
Yeah.
There I go again, doing that thing I do.
Not setting
And
yourself apart as especially problematic.
needing to be perfect. Or problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
How's
Yeah.
it been going since then?
Well, I hadn't thought about it till this conversation. So even just now when I laughed, it felt like a genuine laugh and not maybe there was a little bit of like, oh, I'm disclosing myself in it. But like this, like some of it is like a natural, like, that's what I'm getting. I'm getting some of it is a natural outlet,
Yeah.
right? And so if you were going to point this out to a client that they were laughing while they were, that would be a good thing. And a good thing that might be helpful to them,
Yeah.
right? To point out a mixed signal, like you're talking about something difficult, but I hear the laughter. What's in the laughter?
So good.
Like to go there, right?
Yeah.
And do it with lightness, not do it with, why are you laughing while you're talking about this? That is so wrong.
Laughter is inappropriate in this moment.
Inappropriate here.
Let me continue to shame you as you share your most vulnerable parts.
Yeah, which I have been, further embarrassed by folks. And so I do know the pain of that. And so, yeah, so that's an example of playfulness. But before we get too far off, because
There's the
you and
fifth
I
one.
do love to talk, the fifth pathway is what? Tell us
Let's
about
say it at the same time. 1, 2, 3. Sweetness.
sweetness. Yes.
What do you want to
Yes.
say about sweetness?
It's the surprise one. It's the fun one. Another fun one. It's once you get it, it makes a ton of sense. And it's something I think that I'm attracted to in people is sweetness. And even in culture, I went to Japan, Andy and I went to Japan in early November. And I think that I don't know if it's all of the anime that they do or that, and no culture is all of one thing, but I think there is a sweetness
Yes.
to the Japanese and maybe it's other Asian cultures as well, but that kind of childlike wonder and that I think is really helpful when it comes to being kind.
Yeah, I love that there's an openness and like a tenderness that can come in sweetness that I don't know about you, but I was like, well, that doesn't belong in organizations. I certainly shouldn't bring that too much in my adult work, as opposed
Mm-hmm.
to, I think it's lovely. With those two men that I was working with, there were a couple of times when we would get on a meeting and I remember just saying, well, hey, sweeties. And they looked quite uncomfortable and delighted at the same time. And one of them said later, it was a little strange and quite nice to be considered that way. And then we talked
Yeah.
about it. And I was like, well,
Yeah.
because these two, they were sweet men that held it in at
Yes.
work. And we talked about
Yes.
how it wouldn't cost that much to bring it. I mean,
Yeah.
you and I
Yeah.
could spend hours talking about conditioning and gender conditioning not to do that, but
Yeah.
it's available.
Yeah. Yes. Well, that brings up a question that I just came up, that just came to me that isn't, maybe it's something we haven't talked about before is when we're developing people, we talk a lot about how being able to see the qualities that they have is helpful to them. So when we acknowledge them, we share qualities that they have, right? So um, do you think that everyone has sweetness, or do you think for some, and can it be cultivated? I guess it must be if we're putting it as a pathway, but what do you think? Does everyone have sweetness in them?
It's a good question. You know where I thought you were going was
Where?
acknowledging traits in somebody else, which is, in yours and my
Yes,
vernaculars, is acknowledgement, is being sweet.
sure. Ah, it is. It does have a
I
sweetness to
hadn't
it.
thought of that before, quite like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know
Yeah.
how we
Well,
teach it
that's
is
what's
like,
in your
don't
mind.
just say you are brave, but do it from your heart.
Yes.
I don't, it's a good question. Is it a little bit like part of our coaching model is people are naturally creative, resourceful, and whole? Is trusting that everybody
Hmm.
has a modicum of sweetness in them? I don't know.
Yeah.
Do you,
It's a good
do you have
question.
thoughts?
Well, I do think most of us have kindness in us. Sweetness, I think maybe we can have more or less of it.
Yeah.
Maybe like
Yeah.
some people, it's just a natural, like there's like metaphors that we've thought about, like a puppy is
Yeah.
sweet, right?
Not everybody may come across as a puppy.
Yeah. A 4-year-old can be sweet. Just depends on if they're
Time
being
of
sweet or
day.
not.
Right.
Yeah,
But
exactly.
even like a grandmother or grandfather could be sweet. It may not look like a puppy.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
for coaching purposes, I think to bring a version of that openness, whether you
Yes.
call it sweetness or just like a tender-hearted approach,
Mhm.
I think needs to be present or cultivated.
Yeah. Good. Good. Yeah. So maybe there's a range of that, just like there's a range of the other ones, but is the one that feels the least like a skill or like something that like honesty. There's been many, 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 many communication books that
Right.
talk about honesty. And vulnerability is now the thing in
Right.
organizations. So people kind of get that.
But we haven't
And
seen a book title
yeah,
called "The Sweet CEO," bringing more open-hearted
exactly.
puppy-likeness to your culture.
There is an equity in it though, and I think that's maybe that
Oh,
I was trying to make a distinction between playfulness and sweetness, and I think with sweetness you're willing, like, because I think the reason puppies are such a good example is because they know how to play and they know how to be submissive.
yes, 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 yes.
Yeah, and that without getting into more uh, abstract concepts, there is a sweetness is usually non-hierarchical in a way, or if it is hierarchical, like you're willing to play the person who's following.
This is why I like partnering with you. We have this huge concept, and then you can boil it down to a few really inherent and cogent points. Like,
Oh
yeah, there's
well, great.
egalitarianism, or there's equality
Yeah,
or non-hierarchy. It's hard to
yeah,
say "Hi, sweetie" to somebody and then say, "Go mop the floor," whatever.
right,
I'm in
right, right.
charge.
Or step into your role, right? Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah. You're
it
right.
feels like a role buster almost, doesn't it?
It does. It does. It feels, yeah. And it, again, it's that human piece, the human to human versus the role to
Yeah.
role. So very cool.
We just handled
Awesome.
everything. Honestly, to everybody listening right now, every time Nina and I talk about the 5 pathways, we discover something new in them,
We
and we get
do.
excited.
We do. Thank goodness this is recorded because so many of our conversations aren't.
And then we forget.
We can actually, yeah, we could put this in a doc in the document. Yeah, that's so good.
Yeah.
That's so good. Well, um, so we've talked about the 5 pathways. Which one is your superpower, you personally?
Probably playfulness.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I
It
think so
just,
too.
things seem fun. I didn't, maybe the way to say it is I don't feel like I had to dig that one out of as much rubble as an adult as I had
Mm,
to
mm.
dig some of the other rubble away to um, bring back directness, uh, vulnerability, clarity, and sweetness.
Yeah,
How about
yeah.
you?
And I
Oh,
know,
go ahead.
well, before we go there, like, I know it's pretty natural for
Yeah.
you. And if you were going to say one thing about like what it creates in a meeting or a room or in a coaching conversation, like what do you think is so important to you about being playful?
Yeah, and just as long as it's, I don't want to say appropriate, but like you were talking about laughing at a time when you were maybe embarrassed, as long
Yeah.
as I'm not trying to make things too playful because there's something maybe painful in front of us to face. But
Mm-hmm.
like the usefulness of playfulness is, I think it makes things fresh. It's almost like
Mm-hmm.
opening a window and bringing in some fresh air. And man, I cannot tell you how many times either I brought in playfulness or somebody else did, and then our brains come up with more ideas.
Yeah.
It seems to be a generator of possibility.
Ooh. Oh, cool. So it creates more creativity in a
Yeah,
conversation.
I mean, I don't know about you, but think about when you were a kid, you'd have an idea, and then your friend would have an idea, and then suddenly it would become this whole other thing. And up until a
Mm.
certain point, I never made that problematic. Maybe once I got to a certain grade, it's like, well, we're supposed to stay on track. But the
Yeah.
playfulness
Yeah.
seems to expand things.
Yeah, yeah. And I guess the thing I would add about the appropriateness, because I do know that we both know that appropriateness is what gets in the way of true kindness sometimes, right? That
Yeah, true.
we think there's only certain things that we should say, or that, there's just all kinds of baggage with appropriate. I go back to my ORSC training and think about like when we were looking at team toxins, and sarcasm is one.
Yes,
And
teasing.
so there's a function that playfulness can serve. Like what when you offer playfulness, and I remember working with teams who they did have a lot of little teasing on the team, and it didn't seem to create harm or like reduce the psychological
Yes.
safety, right? Most of the time. And so I think it's up to the relationship to decide what is playful and what's not to a certain degree, unless we can see for ourselves as coaches that there's an ouch in there that people are ignoring, right?
Yeah, and to
So
name
I
it.
guess what I'm saying is that playfulness, if it's a deflection, like to your point, is probably not useful for a team or a coaching conversation. But when playfulness is used to go deeper to make something more
Yeah.
workable, then it's true kindness.
Another way that this has become a term that I think is really important is not punching down.
Exactly.
Does somebody have to be the victim or the scapegoat of the comedy in that moment versus is there kind of an inclusive level setting that feels fun and expansive? And I love that
Very
idea of
cool.
the relationship getting to hold or decide together maybe what is helpful and what
Yeah.
isn't.
Yeah. Yeah. So just holding up that mirror,
Yeah.
right? So you wanted me
Yeah,
to say which one is my
what's your
superpower?
superpower?
Well, you're going to guess, you're going to know right away when I say it. So clarity.
Yes, I was hoping you'd get that one.
Yes. Because of the thing you said about distinctions, and I've spent a lot of time developing my intellect,
Yeah,
and so and there was a time in coaching where we're so focused, and I hear this with newer coaches still, that we spend so much time telling them, get out of your head, be in your
right.
body, focus on your heart. And I think, yes, and the brain is such a powerful tool,
Yes.
the neocortex, everything that I know. It helps me make sense of the world. It helps me forgive myself. It helps me help my clients. And so, and that clarity of like, what is it that I really want to say? And, and just good communication, which I guess I got from teachers as well as my early profession in publishing, where we do presentations, and I was working with the written word all the time, and so for all those reasons, it's just easy for me to create clarity, not always be clear because we're not ever, it's always about does the other person actually get what we said, and pausing to make sure, but
Yeah, I think because some of us have found that the world tends to be biased toward our brain, then we make our brain wrong and say it should be all about intuition and the body. But like you said, our brains are such gifts. And if I think about our work together, one of the things that you reminded me of is, sorry, there's a little bit of noise outside my house. Is it okay?
yeah, it's
Okay,
fine.
great.
Yeah.
Are just agreements with your coachees, creating clear boundaries, agreements, working assumptions, how we're working together, what are the goals that we're working toward, which is crucial in a coaching relationship. And those fit under clarity, whether
Yeah.
you're the one making things clear or you're asking your coachees to be clear, and
Yeah.
it's a relief, even if it doesn't always feel sexy.
Right. Yes. Yes. So, um, and it's probably why it's one of the first things we do when we enter a group or a room, right? Not only with our one-on-one clients, but what are the agreements people want to hold together? And boy, you can tell right away when you haven't set an agreement that's normal, right? Like I have an agreement of getting permission to train people because you think that that's why they're there, right? But if you don't get explicit permission, sometimes they just they get annoyed with you when you come over and try to give them a little help if you didn't do it exactly in a relational way, right? And so you're like, oh, I think it's also because we didn't really design up front that I'm going to come over sometimes and interrupt your conversations. And it's not meant to be an interruption, but because you're also learning something while you're in this breakout, I want to make sure that I'm being of service to you and that you're getting it. You're not repeating it in a negative, not in a negative way, in an inaccurate way, so to speak.
Yeah, it feels like in that example, you're setting norms ahead of time so people aren't shocked. And I think clarity is like being a good host. Think of somebody coming into my house. Part of that
Yeah.
would be, oh, here's the restroom. Dishes are over there. Why don't I get this for you? I was thinking about eating at 6 o'clock. That isn't the stuff that's like exciting headlines, but it can be
Yes.
so calming and welcoming for a guest. And I think a lot
Oh,
of
that's so
coaches,
beautiful.
I think a
Yeah.
lot of coaches might get nervous about trying to be too clear, or they don't want to
Mm.
be pushy. And then what they forget is, or they lose the opportunity to host a really good conversation.
Yes. Yes. And I'm also laughing because I'm remembering, what we say that sometimes your strongest asset becomes a liability when it's
Oh yeah,
overused.
I've heard that
And I'm
before.
thinking about you and I when we are planning, when we've been brainstorming or when we've been trying to iterate. And
You and
then
me.
I come in, yeah, yeah, I come in with a really clear title, and then I give you the next one, and then I give you the next one. And the impact is you think I keep changing my
Oh yeah,
mind, and I think I'm brainstorming.
yeah, because
But I'm
we're
being so clear and so precise. And you're like, well, which one is it, Nina? Do you want to do this or do you want to do that? And I'm like, oh, I'm not being clear. And so that clarity becomes, because it's so definitive,
yeah.
right? Instead of just, again, maybe being transparent or honest and saying, hey, let's brainstorm a little bit. I want to name 4 or 5 different ways we could do
Yeah.
this because that is the way my brain works. I want to name like, and it drives Andy crazy too.
But like you're saying, if you set the context for it, it's like, oh, we're iterating right now. I can totally do that with you. Is that right?
Yes. Yeah, and you told me that it made so much more sense when I actually explained that I wasn't deciding, I was just brainstorming. My version of brainstorming doesn't sound like
Oh, right,
brainstorming.
right. It sounded
Yeah,
like you're being precise.
exactly,
Yeah.
exactly, yeah. But anyway, so let's talk about we could either talk about our when we're working on or what we see for coaches. Where do you want to take the
Oh, I
conversation
like
next in terms of
that was good iteration, and I like them both.
mm,
Let's tackle the what we see for coaches, and then do
yeah.
the other one, including maybe what we see are some common mistakes or some areas, like some common gaps.
I like that. Yeah. Makes a ton of sense. So,
I think one of the things, people take themselves a little bit too seriously and they get tight. And how that might show up is the vulnerability, sweetness, and playfulness. Those three pathways of kindness go out, diminish or go out the window. They might stay
yeah.
honest, they might stay clear, but there's a little bit of heart, flexibility, some of that sweetness and play that disappears because they're thinking, oh, I have to be a good coach, or I hope I'm providing value for the organization, or I hope I'm not blowing my contract.
Right, right. So, yeah, I was going to ask you where situationally you see this show up the most. And you think, like, in general, we get worried, which I think is a natural thing that we as coaches get worried that because we are getting
Yes.
paid for the conversation, that if we have, it's like it's bad to offend or we are going to offend. Yeah,
Yeah.
I think
It
that makes
reminds me of
sense.
when we're all on a Zoom call and maybe there's 15 of us and it's laughing and there's flow. And then somebody said, oh, we forgot to record. And then they hit record and then everybody tightens up. I think maybe
Mm,
money or big contracts or the promise of future work, for many of us who are entrepreneurs, it can have us tighten. Like,
yeah.
oh, money's on the table, or this is a big contract, or my coachee, their job is at risk. I better squeeze tight and maybe rein it in. And I think that's unkind.
Yeah. 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 Well, it's especially unkind if, um, yeah, like you said, if you're honest and clear, but it lacks
Some warmth, some
humanity.
humanity.
Yeah. So it ends up sounding very judgy.
Yeah,
You end up sounding like you're judging
yeah,
them. So let's just be really clear. It's like, wow, no one wants to be judged in a coaching session. It's like almost worse than if you're getting judged in a meeting because here you are in the space where you're probably already being vulnerable as client,
yeah.
or you thought this was a space where you were mostly going to get empathy or all empathy and maybe some direction, but not a
Yeah,
judgment,
and the
right?
coach gets worried, and then, like you said, their humanity sort of diminishes.
Yeah.
By the way, if it's not obvious, one of the things, I'm saying this to people listening, you and I keep noticing when you remove one or two of these pathways, the kindness diminishes. Like, you can't just be sweet and that's
Yes.
kind. You can't just
Right.
be playful. You have to have the other ones too.
Yeah. Oh, I like that you think of it as diminishing versus a black and white. That's
It
not
seems to kind of
kind.
go
You're
down
right.
almost like pistons or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
What about you?
That's interesting.
Like gaps or opportunities that you see for coaches?
Well, it's easier for me to think about it in my own practice, but maybe we can that will be useful to people anyway. As and I'm thinking about the vulnerability part around it's something I'm better at now. And so I've learned some things, but the vulnerability is not just about you being transparent with your clients or with your directs if you're a leader. It's also being open and willing to hear about someone's heartache and
Oh,
someone else's pain. Um, and so I think that in general, I'm good at that. I've been well trained at being empathetic and then staying and being present. Coaching presence is so important. So even if there's stuff going on in my head, usually it's like, I have no experience with this. Am I still the right coach for them? I can like
like they have an
self manage.
identity you don't have or a lived experience you don't have, and then you might worry.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, exactly. But then in 2020, I think that I got more nervous about my lived experience and more judgy on myself, like, oh my gosh, I couldn't possibly coach a person of color. I'm just not going to know what their experience is like. And I'm not, so, I went and did a bunch of work on myself and learned, and that was all helpful. And it did work. But I just remember in the moment, and it was my gift at seeing people's full humanity was getting in the way because I was also putting them in boxes of like, oh,
Oh,
that person isn't gonna, I'm not gonna be able to raise them. But when you're actually coaching someone, and the more people that I coached who had different experiences than me and different identities, the more I found not only the common ground, but the many facets of who they were. You know what I mean? Like someone who's a black woman is also a global health leader and grew up in a certain city. So I won't say because I don't want to give away confidentiality, but grew up in a certain city, has been here her whole life and has strong roots in the community here. And, you just start to learn and you see the nuances and the differences between, and, like their uniqueness, which is why I think people repel from identity work because they think, well, you're not going to see the fullness of who I am if you're just viewing me as a person of color or
Yeah,
whatever, right?
or just the identity rather than the human with the identity.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
maybe in your version is similar to mine in that your worry kicked in, and rather
Yeah.
than allowing you to be curious over there, but also impacted by them.
Yeah.
That,
Exactly. Exactly. Because when you're worried about yourself, you can't really fully be present for their stories, right?
well, maybe
So,
I'm wondering, thinking out loud, the
yeah.
opposite of, well, I don't know. So this is going to sound too definitive, but the opposite of kindness is worry. Or worry is
Ooh,
definitely one
obstacle.
obstacle to kindness.
Yes. Yes, I think so. I think fear and worry, partly because they have us go to level one. They have us go to that place about even unintentionally, we're no longer fully present. And I think that's a part of it. We're not seeing the other person as deeply or as fully, which of course you can never see it someone 100%, but just that ability to see more of them, and it's so important. It's such a great skill to build because now I do this life story work when I start with clients, and I am always in awe of the stories my clients tell me about their lives and who they are. And you never know.
Yes.
Like I've worked with people and I'm like, wow, I would have no idea that that was part of your life experience, right? Or people being embarrassed because they've had kind of a normal childhood, quote unquote. And then they're like, I know it's just kind of ordinary. And I'm like, no, there's so many cool things. And,
Yeah.
and just like being able to celebrate people's stories.
Boy, there's a lot of kindness in there. Even your approach to
Mhm.
say this person is going to have a good story, that's like an assumption that will support you in them.
Ah,
Which is
yeah,
kind.
yeah, and good might be a funny word, but yes, they're gonna have us their story
Their story
matters, right?
matters.
And they
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, we have is the story we have. So, we can obviously do narrative work and change our story or how we view our lives, but we also I think there's something deeply healing about sharing our stories for sure. Yeah.
I mean, this is another thing that you and I love about coaching is we get to hear people's stories and validate them
Yes.
and underline them and help them learn from them.
Yeah, exactly.
I don't know
Exactly.
if I ever told you this. Years ago, I was teaching a coaching class, and it was a fulfillment course, which is a lot about helping coaches coach people around achieving what they want, putting their values into action. And somebody out of the blue said, "I would like to be a world famous singer and like go on, one of the singing shows and win." And somebody else said, "Let's be realistic."
Oh, nice.
So
Talk
there was some
about a lid.
pushback, and I said, "Well, hold on just a minute." And then the person who said it got a little mad, and then there was a whole discussion. And her main point was, "Well, what if she's a bad singer?" And so it
Mm,
actually led into a great conversation about let's make sure we don't decide ahead of time what somebody's story was or what it will be. And she
mm.
apologized. She saw it. She understood later. And we can understand where she was coming from. But there was this, I'm worried about this story that you want to create for yourself. So I'm going to put a kibosh on it ahead
Yeah.
of time.
Yeah, yeah. So that is a way that we are not vulnerable, and we shut down the other person's vulnerability as
Yeah.
well.
Let's be
Yeah,
realistic. and, and,
yeah, yeah.
and I remember, and then she said, well, we haven't heard her sing yet. And then somebody else said, you're right, we
Mm,
haven't. And that was like,
mm.
ooh, it was good learning for all of us.
Yeah, I actually recently learned from a course I got to audit with a colleague that is a therapist trying to help coaches understand some of the models and tools therapists
Oh,
use.
nice.
um, that hyper rationalization and being logical are actually defense mechanisms. And I guess I knew that. I mean, I know it's one I use is being logical, but I never thought of it that way. That it's kind of like the sarcasm one. Like sometimes being logical is
Yeah.
useful, and sometimes being logical actually takes people out of their experience or the feelings that they're having about a story, right?
Was
Or
there
even
examples that
their
they
vision.
talked about
Yeah.
in class?
Um, Well, they used case studies. So if I could remember the case studies, it would be an example. But it's really just when you hear. a client not owning the hurt of a story
Oh,
or even any of the emotions of the story, even their hopes for the story. They just, they get rational and say, well, that's not realistic to do that. Like they can tell themselves that, right? So this person was bringing in that defense mechanism for the other person. Maybe they felt like this was not possible, or they thought it was, they envied the person. You never know,
yeah,
right? When you're in those
yeah.
conversations. So
Oh, that's a good catch. Once again, is that logic being used for honesty and clarity, or is it a defense mechanism because you don't want to be vulnerable?
right. All right. Or you're worried about their
Yeah.
vulnerability, which, also is that worry again, which you mentioned. Worry probably is kind of what's the opposite of an antidote?
Oh, like the poison.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's not a helpful quality to bring. It doesn't help us. Those pistons don't go up on
Yeah.
kindness when
You know where I've had
when we're
trouble,
worried.
and I've built the muscle so I don't do this like I used to, and I'm certainly more
Yeah.
open-hearted. But where I had trouble initially in coaching is somebody would talk about something bad that happened, something painful that happened to them, and that involves somebody else, and I might immediately do some version of, I'm sure they didn't mean it.
Ah,
The 1% gem in there might be to help them see it from a different viewpoint, but I was probably really uncomfortable with their pain, like you just said. So it was a technique so I didn't have to feel that, oh, I'm sure they didn't
mm,
mean it, or I'm sure your parents or your boss or your neighbor had good intentions, but it's stepping over
yeah.
the impact it had on the person I was coaching.
Yes.
And I
Yes.
basically had
Mm,
to basically say to myself, Jeff, don't do that. Don't do that. Put that aside.
yeah.
Listen.
Yeah. And so that's how you handled it. You didn't feel like you needed to excavate why you were doing that, which is great. If you're just going to say, that's a new habit, I'm not going to do that anymore.
I had to excavate off camera in my
Yeah.
life.
Yeah. That makes
But
a ton of sense.
when I could feel the desire arise in a coaching session, really it
Mm.
almost feels like a muscle, like just squeeze. I don't need to do that right now.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. That's so great. It's a bit like just remembering that coaching and growing others is as much about what you don't do as about what you do.
So true. Have you ever had that moment where you're coaching somebody and it's like you're self-managing, or like don't give advice, don't bring in a judgment, and you keep your mouth closed, and then they might say, "Boy, that space you gave me was so helpful." I'm thinking, I'm glad because I was really muscling it in that moment.
Right, right. They don't know how much you're scurrying underneath the water
Yeah,
line,
your
right?
little feet kicking.
Paddling. Yeah, yeah. Well, I can't believe we've spent so
Oh,
much time already, and it's time to begin to wrap up. It's just time flies with you. Conversation always flows. This is what happens in our
this is what
meetings
happens.
too. We
We
are like,
learn more stuff and get excited, and then we think, oh, it's already been an hour.
we got to go. We got to go. What are we going to do after this? So, one thing that we are doing is we are going to be offering every other month something called the Kind Lab for coaches to kind of explore these together and actually to get some practice. I'm super excited to do the first one in February with you.
Yeah, we get to practice together, put some time on the mat to build some of these muscles or scrape some of the stuff away that gets in the way of kindness in our coaching and helping evoke kindness in others. And I love the idea of it being a lab, like an experimental playground.
Yeah, that fits our facilitation style, and we definitely want it to be experiential. And we decided to do 90 minutes so they would get time for
Yeah.
practice. And the first one's on February 19th, and we'll have a link in the show notes so people can go check it out. And I hope people will come and play because it's so fun and we learn so much when we're together. And it'd be fun to do it in person, but we're going to start with these on Zoom.
Start with
So.
these on Zoom. You'll get to come and add your contribution to this concept of kindness that we can all build together and keep practicing.
Yes, yes. And it's fun. I'm so glad that we finally got you on the show. I thought about it earlier in the season, and it's no wonder that we're doing it in December. It doesn't surprise me given our schedules. But
And I like that you wore red and I wore orange. Go team.
yes, so
We
people who
didn't
are
plan this.
to see the video, yes, they will see our well, they're not really matchy, but our close call
They're
outfits.
very
Yeah.
kindly complimentary.
Yes.
Thank,
Well, thank you for being in my life, Jeffrey Jacobson. It's so wonderful to have you as a friend and a colleague and still a mentor for me.
Thanks, Nina. Thanks for having me on your amazing show, for continuing to want to play together. And also, we get some
Hmm.
holiday time together coming up soon.
We
So,
did.
what I
We
love,
did.
and we get in person time for our friendship too.
Yes.